Hello everyone, greetings from Australia. My name is Ruth and I am an Australian registered migration agent and a solicitor or a lawyer of the Supreme and High Court of Australia. Well, today I would like to share with you information about Australian citizenship applications. Now, I note that the information on this video is not to be treated as legal advice, but it will give you vital information about your case. As at March 2020, it is said that more than 27,000 people have attended over 454 ceremonies around the country to become Australian citizens. And that was on Australia Day, which was 26th of January 2020. And this has marked the largest number to date. Now, between the 1st of July and the 31st of December 2019, in a short 6 months, it is said that 106,704 people were granted Australian citizenship. Now, there is a huge benefit in becoming an Australian citizen. Some of you might have watched some of my previous videos where I explained that if you are a permanent resident, the term permanent usually means that you can remain in Australia forever, but it gives you up to a 5-year travel right. And for that reason, if you wish to continue to travel, you need to renew the visa, etc., etc. Also, the term permanent residency is actually not that permanent after all, because there have been so many cases where permanent residents have been removed and deported from Australia because they usually based on character grounds. So if you're a permanent resident and you are looking at retiring and spending the rest of your time in Australia, or if you've got children in Australia, you may really wish to consider Australian citizenship application, because that would give you a bit more, I suppose, security for your long-term residency in Australia. Well, without further ado, I would like to share with you the general eligibility to become an Australian citizen. So generally, you have to be a permanent resident or an eligible New Zealand citizen. Now, the term eligible New Zealand citizen means someone who is actually, by law, an Australian permanent resident. I've actually made another video on the difference on the different pathways for a New Zealander to become an Australian citizen. So you can check out one of my videos. But yes, usually you have to be here living in Australia before 2001 and continue to maintain residency if you are a New Zealand citizen. Generally, you have to show that you are in Australia when the application is decided. You have spent time, significant time in Australia, and you know about Australia, and you intend to live in Australia or at least maintain a lasting link with Australia whilst being overseas. The general residence requirement says that at the time you apply, you must have been living in Australia on a valid visa for the past 4 years. So this is just at the time you apply. You must also be a permanent resident or an eligible New Zealand citizen for the past 12 months. And you must show that you have not been away from Australia for more than 12 months in total in the last 4 years. So you have to spend 3 out of 4 years in Australia, including no more than 90 days in the last 12 months. So in the last 12 months, you can't be out of the country for more than 90 days. For children who are 16 or 17 years old, if meeting this requirement would cause significant hardship or disadvantage, then there may be an opportunity for your child to claim an exemption, and that's determined on a case-by-case basis. Children under 16 do not usually need to meet the general residence requirement, but they must be permanent residents. In terms of a close and continuing link to Australia, an applicant must intend to live in Australia or maintain that close relationship with Australia, because citizenship really is a privilege and it requires a long-term commitment to Australia. the Department of Home Affairs may consider if you have, let's say, a child who is an Australian citizen, a partner who is an Australian citizen, and the time that you've spent together, any extended family in Australia, the fact that you've spent time in Australia, the fact that you have got a bank account in Australia, a job in Australia, if you've paid your taxes in Australia, so pay your taxes, or if you have properties in Australia. So they will look at your application as a whole. Basically, it is really important that you can prove that you are who you say you are. So the identity check is very important. According to immigration, they say that we must not approve your citizenship application if we are not satisfied with your identity. And identity is usually assessed from birth. So all your paperwork has to be done properly. It has to be true and correct. Now, character is a huge issue when it comes to citizenship. Criminal offenses is usually a stumbling block for someone who is applying for citizenship. Basically, according to immigration, they must not approve an application if their current proceedings for an offence against an Australian law, and that's pending. So if there's a current court case, pretty much. Or when there is less than 2 years since an applicant was released from prison after serving a prison sentence for 12 months or more, or 10 years if a repeat offender. Or if an applicant is subject to certain conditions set by an Australian court, such as being released on parole, good behaviour or bail, where action may be still taken against the applicant for breach of those conditions, or if the applicant is currently in prison or in a psychiatric institution ordered by the court at the time of decision. So it doesn't mean that if there was a criminal offence that you cannot get citizenship. It is really a burden on your side to prove to the Australian government that you are a person of good character. For example, if back in the days, you did something silly and you paid for it, whether it's a fine or you served prison time, as long as you can show that you have changed, you were remorseful of what you've done, it was something that you did, 20 years ago, then there is no reason why you cannot apply for citizenship. Obviously, you still have to show that you are a person of good standing and you're a person of good character in the community. We have assisted clients in such legal submission, and we have seen significant success. So if you or someone you know are in that position, please don't hesitate to contact us. Okay. And also there are other barriers to citizenship application. For example, if there is a risk to national security, or you have just given up your Australian citizenship in the last 12 months and then you're thinking of reapplying. But generally, if you can meet the residency requirement, you are a person of good character, you are committed to Australia and would like to live here, and you're a permanent resident or an eligible New Zealand citizen. So if you're a New Zealander, please do check out my other New Zealand videos, because that term is very interesting. And can be a bit confusing. I have had a lot of New Zealand clients who have applied for citizenship themselves and then got knocked back because they didn't fit into, the requirement. So I really encourage you to check out my New Zealanders Becoming Australian video. But otherwise, if you're applying for citizenship, well, all the very best. There's usually a test that's involved that's not too difficult, but you need to study for it if you're applying for citizenship by conferral, unless you are a person over 60 years old. Usually you have to attend a ceremony. It is very, very important for you to attend the Australian citizenship ceremony, because if you don't, you will lose the entire application. I had a client, someone who rang us some time back and said his wife and his children all went to Australian citizenship ceremony, but he was too busy at work. He didn't get to go. And guess what? Everyone else were granted their citizenship, but he wasn't, because he wasn't there. So if you can't attend the ceremony, please tell your local council or local government so that they can reschedule you. Okay? But otherwise, please note that the information in this video is general information only. If you need specific advice for your case, please do not hesitate to contact us on the email address below. And we wish you all the very best with your citizenship pursuit. Thank you.